So in this 1-week series, I'll be explaining the essence of the Gita chapter by chapter. The Bhagwad Gita, as said by Shree Krishn to Arjun on the battlefield in Kurukshetra more than 5,000 years ago, just before the war was about to begin. Today I'll be speaking to you on the philosophy of the first chapter, but before I do that, let me tell you a little bit. What is the Gita? In Sanatana Dharma, everything is based on the Vedas, in fact. Whatever is written in any other scripture, whether it be the Gita, the Puranas, the Ramayana, any other scripture, it's all based on what's said in the Vedas. The Veda is the foundation for all the knowledge of Sanatana Dharma, or Hinduism. And as you know, all of these scriptures are written in Sanskrit, so we also call them the Sanskrit scriptures, or the Hindu scriptures, or the scriptures of Sanatana Dharma. They're all based on the Vedas. What is Ved? Ved originally has 100,000 mantras. Like one mantra I sang in my Vandana. Yo brahmanam vidadhati purvam yo vai vedanscha prahinoti tasmai tagvang ha devamatma buddhi prakasham mumukchurvai sharanamaham prapadye. That's one mantra. 100,000 like that is what makes up the full form of the Vedas. The Ved is produced by Bhagwan himself in this world. In Ved it says, Nishvasitamasya Vedah. Thanks. Which means that before the universe was manifested, God outwardly manifested the Vedas, which were held within him in a subtle form. It doesn't mean that books came out. The knowledge of the Veda is a divine power which exists eternally within God. So even God doesn't make the Vedas. He just outwardly manifests them. That's why Veda is also called Apaurusheya. Means it's not made by anybody. And it's also called Paurusheya, meaning it's from God, because although he didn't make it, but he produced it outwardly because it was there in a subtle form within him. But Ved has its own divine form, a personal divine form. In the Bhagavatam, Shree Krishna says to Uddhava, Kalena nashta pralaye varniyam veda sanghita adau brahmane prokta dharmo yasyam madatmaka. He gives the knowledge of the Vedas to Brahma. Brahma is a divine personality who is in charge of keeping care of this one little earth planet in this whole huge universe. There are many Brahmas in our universe. So he gives the knowledge to Brahma, the knowledge of Vedas, and Brahma produces that knowledge on the earth planet through the rishis, the first saints of the earth planet. But they just keep the knowledge in their divine intellect. They don't need it written down. Eventually they produce that knowledge in a written form, and that is the Vedas. And sometimes, through any catastrophe or simply through the passage of time, the books may be lost, but the Veda is never lost. Again, whenever needed, Krishna gives the knowledge to Brahma, Brahma passes it on to rishis, and it's produced in the world. It means that Ved is eternal. Eternal knowledge about God and how to find God. In the Vedas, there are many branches. The four Ved, Rig Ved, Sam Ved, Yajur Ved, Atharva Ved, Each one has many branches. So if you add up all the branches of those 4 Veda, you get 1,180 branches. And each branch is divided into sections. So in each branch there's a section that deals with the ultimate knowledge of what is the soul, who is God, what's the ultimate aim of life. The other parts deal more with how should a person behave in the family, what's the duty of a child to their parents, of a mother to her child, of a father to their child, what's your duty in the society, what's your duty to your country. All of that is covered. All the do's and don'ts of how to be a good person is also covered in the Veda. There's a section in each branch that deals with the ultimate knowledge of why are we here and what is the ultimate goal of a soul's existence. And that part, that section is called Upanishad. It means that in each branch there's an Upanishad, so there are originally 1,180 Upanishads, which are really the highest knowledge of the Vedas. So what is Gita? It is said that if the Upanishads are cows, Krishna milked those cows, and the milk is the Gita. In other words, the essence of Veda is in Upanishads, and the essence of the Upanishads, of which there are so many, Krishna took all of that knowledge and put it in only 700 verses in the Gita. Just one small book, 700 verses. Instead of 100,000 verses in the Veda, 700 verses, you can read it in a few hours. That's the Gita. He condensed the whole knowledge. It's the same knowledge of Veda. Like I told you, all the other scriptures, they're only explaining what's in the Veda, but it's in a condensed form. Well, the Gita is a very valuable scripture for us, and it's become very popular. It's been translated into hundreds of languages around the world. And it's available here in America in probably every single bookstore that you can walk into. You'll find multiple translations of the Gita. What I'm going to share with you this week is not my translation of the Gita. I'm not qualified to translate the Gita. I'm not qualified to translate any scripture for you. In the Bhagavatam, after Shree Krishna told Uddhav that he produces the Veda on the earth planet, he also explains why so many paths come into being in the spiritual field. He explained to Uddhav that because people are of different type of mentality, normally they're either sattvic, rajas, or tamas. There are 3 qualities of the material world, and since our mind is material, we have those 3 qualities. And one is more prominent in an individual's mind than others. So we can say this person is more sattvic, means he's good. He's more rajas, means he's kind of in between. He doesn't do many good things, but he doesn't do many bad things. Just looks out for himself. And then you have tamas, someone who has evil tendencies. We have all 3 of those qualities in our mind, but one will be more developed over the other 2. So Sri Krishna told Uddhav, those of a tamas type of way of thinking, they interpreted the Veda in a tamas way. Those who were rajas interpreted it in a rajas way. Those who were sattvic interpreted it in a sattvic way. And he said all 3 interpretations were wrong because the Veda is divine. So it's beyond those 3 qualities of Maya, and it's beyond the understanding of a material intellect. So then how are you supposed to understand Veda? Acharyavan Purusho hi Veda. Veda itself says you need the help of a God-realized saint to understand the true meaning of the Vedas. Uttishthata jagrata prapyavaran nibodhata. Kathopanishad says, O humans, arise, awake, and receive the true knowledge of God. How? Not by reading the Vedas. Go to a saint who knows God, who's attained God, prapya, the one who's actually attained God. He can give you the knowledge by helping you understand these scriptures, explaining them to you. So, I'm not a God-realized saint, thus I'm not qualified to even interpret a single verse of the Gita. Then what am I doing here? I'm just passing on to you what I've learned from my Guruji, from someone who is qualified to explain the Gita. What I've learned, which has helped me to understand spiritual philosophy, I'm just going to share that with you as best I can. So the Gita is the essence of the Upanishads, which is the essence of the Ved, and it is called Brahma Vidya Shastra. Brahma means God, and Vidya means knowledge. So it's the knowledge of God. Does that mean that by reading Gita we can know God? No. Again, that would be a big mistake. Sometimes people study scriptures and then they get a pride in knowing it. It's possible for someone to memorize the entire Gita. It's only 700 verses. There are people who have done that. But by memorizing the Gita, do they have the knowledge of the Gita? No. But they might get a pride that I know Gita. So then they're farther from their goal than they were in the beginning. You'll see throughout each chapter of the Gita, Krishna is preaching surrender. Surrender comes from a place of humbleness, humility. When we feel that we can't do it ourselves, then we feel, oh Krishna, I'll surrender to you. Wherever there's pride, that prohibits our surrender. In the Bhagavatam again, one time Shree Krishna offered a boon to his aunt, Kunti, Arjun's mother. Arjun and Krishna were cousins. So Kunti asked for a boon which no one had ever heard of before. She broke the record and she surprised Sri Krishna. When he told her to ask for a boon, she said, I want to receive misfortune and hardship at every step of my life. Krishna said, Auntie, what are you asking for? Do you know? Are you in your right mind? She said, yes, I'll tell you why. Janmaishwarya shruta shribhi redhamana madah puman naivarhatya vidhatum vai tvam akinchana gocharam. Tvam akinchana gocharam. You are attainable by those who are akinchan, which means they feel that they are destitute. Destitute means you don't have anything. So she said, in the world it is seen that those who have a high and noble birth, even if they don't mean to, they do have some subtle pride in that birth. Wealth does the same thing to people. We don't even want to have pride, but the pride is there. If we have wealth, there will be some subtle intoxication of the pride of having wealth or power. Beauty, the one who has beauty is proud of their beauty. The one who has strength may be ugly, but he'll still be proud of his strength. Whatever we have, which is viewed as good or great, we have a pride in that. So Kunti Devi said, all of those things that give pride keep a person from you. So Krishna, give me just misfortune and hardship so that I truly feel destitute from inside, and that way I will be able to attain you. Because a soul only surrenders to God when he feels truly humble and destitute. So even if we have $1 million in the bank, before God, we should feel humble and destitute. So the goal is not to develop a theoretical knowledge of the Gita that we can be proud of. The goal is to understand what do we have to do to become surrendered to Shree Krishna. How does the Gita end? The Gita ends with Arjun surrendering and finally saying, okay, Krishna, whatever you want, I'll do it. If he had said that in the very beginning, there would have been no Gita. Krishna said, fight the war. Arjun said, I don't really want to. So then Krishna had to explain the whole Gita, 18 chapters. Why? Because Arjun wasn't fully surrendered to him. Although he said, Karpanya dosho pahatasva bhava prichhami tvam dharma sammudha cheta yat Shreyasyan nishchitam ruhitan me shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. He says, I'm surrendered. I am your surrendered disciple. Prapannam. I am fully surrendered to you. So please, Krishna, you tell me what's best, because my mind is confused. I don't know what's best in this situation. So Krishna said, fight the war. But Arjun wasn't immediately convinced. It means he wasn't fully surrendered. Surrender means surrendering your heart and surrendering your intellect. Then Krishna, whatever you say, I'll just do it if I'm fully surrendered. But he wasn't. So the whole Gita was only for one thing, to get Arjun to surrender to Krishna. Krishna's God, whatever he says goes, right? Whatever he's going to say is the right thing to do. So why not just do it? Because we're not fully surrendered. We need more understanding to develop our surrender. That's what the knowledge of the Gita is for, to help a person develop their surrender. In the final teaching, at the very end of the 18th chapter, Shree Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shucha. He says, Mamekam sharanam vraja. Come and surrender to me only, leaving the shelter of everything else. His final words to Arjun before Arjun did accept what he was saying. So let's say we memorize that verse of Gita, Mamekam sharanam vraja, and we recite it, we repeat it. So what are we saying? We're saying, surrender to me, surrender to me. So are we supposed to repeat that, or are we supposed to actually do it? We're supposed to do it. We're supposed to become surrendered to Krishna, not just repeat his words. So reciting the Gita is not the point of the Gita either. Learning the philosophy of the Gita and practically following it, that is the point of the Gita. And if we do that, through Sri Krishna's grace, then we can know him. Tesham satata yuktanam bhaktastvam paryupasate. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayanti te. This is from the 10th chapter, where Sri Krishna says, the one who lovingly surrenders to me, keeping his mind attached to me all the time, I grace him with divine knowledge, and through that he knows me. Bhaktyatmananyaya shakya ahamevam vidhorjuna gyatum drashtum cha tatvena praveshtum cha parantapa. From the 11th chapter. through bhakti, through devotion, you become surrendered to Krishna, then you can know him, dhyatum, or you can see him, drashtum, or you can enter into him, praveshtum. So Brahma Vidya Shastra, the Gita, is the knowledge of God, but simply by reading Gita or studying Gita, you can't know God. You have to correctly understand the teachings of Gita, apply them in your life, follow those teachings. And by following that path which is outlined in the Gita, then you can reach God. You can become surrendered to God, and through His grace, then you can know Him. The Gita was said on a battlefield with millions of warriors watching. Arjun said to Shree Krishna, Senayor ubhayor madhye ratham sthapayamechyuta. The battle was just about to begin, in fact. There were millions of warriors on Arjun's side who were going to fight on his side, and millions of warriors on the side of the Kauravas, Duryodhana's side. They were just set to do battle. Back in those days, they had certain rules they followed when they had wars that were mutually agreed upon before the war began. So they agreed at a place where they were going to meet, the time when they were going to start. They also had certain ceremonies that they would go through before they started. One of which was beating drums and sounding conches, and once that had happened, then the war was about to begin, momentarily. So they met early in the morning on Kurukshetra, and all of these warriors sounded their conches and beat their drums. The air was filled, it was like thunder. That had just happened, and the warriors were about to charge together, and Arjun said, Wait, Krishna, take me in the middle. Take my chariot in the middle. I want to be in between both sides so I can look at who is fighting on my side and who is fighting on their side. So Krishna did. Krishna was acting as Arjun's charioteer. Arjun was on the back with his bow and arrow, and Krishna had all the reins of the horses, and he was driving the chariot. So he steered the chariot right into the middle, and Arjun looked. And when he looked into the faces of those against whom he was about to fight, then he became very unsure of what he was about to do. He was about to start a war against these people, many of whom were his relatives or his elders with whom he had grown up. Some were his teachers growing up, his gurus. And he was about to fight against them to the death. They were going to be trying to kill each other. How did this situation come about is described in great length in the Mahabharata scripture. And most of you have some knowledge of this. It was a long chain of events that led up to this point. Duryodhana and his brothers, there were 100 brothers, the sons of Dhritarashtra. They were the cousins of Arjun, who had 4 other brothers, so there were 5 Pandavas. Yudhishthir, Bhimsen, Arjun, Sakul, and Sahadev. They were the sons of King Pandu. So, Arjun's family, by nature, they observed their duties. As Kshatriya, as warriors, their duty is to uphold dharma. Stand up against adharma. So what is adharma? Whatever the Vedas say not to do, that's adharma. Whatever the Ved says to do, that is dharma. Dharma is that which takes you towards God. It elevates your consciousness. Those good actions, good habits, good activities, which elevate one's consciousness, they improve the good qualities in a person by following those practices, actions, habits. So those recommended actions in the Vedas, that's called dharma. If someone follows that, and it can be very individual, then they're following dharma. And someone who doesn't follow that is following adharma. It's the duty, it's the dharma of a kshatriya, of a warrior, to protect dharma and protect those who follow dharma, and to stand up against adharma by force if necessary. What do we have nowadays which could be comparable to a kshatriya of Arjun's time? Police officers, law enforcement officers, they do the same thing. They're supposed to uphold the laws of the society, which is a form of dharma. So Arjun and all of the people on his side were actually on the side of dharma. And Duryodhan and all of his side, they were on the side of adharma, all of those warriors. Duryodhan, as you know, had done many, many wrong things, and he had been warned that he had to stop. But he refused. So they tried all the other means to resolve this conflict, but nothing worked. So the last resort is always the use of force. For a police officer as well, he has many other things he'll try first, but in the end, he has to use force if necessary in order to stop someone from breaking the laws of the society. He's not just allowed to, he has to. He's supposed to. It came to this point with Duryodhan and all of his supporters. He had to be stopped, and he refused to stop through any means, so there was only one resort remaining, one option remaining, that was the use of force, so it came to this point of war. It's interesting to note that before the war happened, Krishna himself, God, went to Duryodhan for one last-ditch effort to try to convince him to avoid the war. He went with one last peace proposal. That imagine, out of all the land he ruled, he said, just give 5 villages to the Pandavas. That's it, just 5 villages, and that will settle it. Duryodhan said, no, I'm not even giving as much land as would be covered by the point of a needle. Not even that much land I'll give to them. Without war, you have to battle against me. You have to fight a war against me. Imagine Krishna, Supreme God, goes to someone to try to convince them and talk some sense into them. And not only do they not listen, but Duryodhan tried to throw Krishna in jail. He disrespected him. Krishna tried one more thing with him. He said, let me show him my almighty form, like he later showed to Arjun on the battlefield. Let me show him my almightiness. Maybe he'll realize who I am, and we can avoid this conflict. So he showed his almighty form to Duryodhan, and Duryodhan said, oh, he's some kind of magician or something. Grab him and throw him in jail. So Krishna just left. They couldn't throw him in jail. But you see our Duryodhan's stubbornness and ignorance, that God himself goes to a soul and that soul won't listen. Because every soul has free will. We have to be more like Arjun. We should be more like Arjun than Duryodhan. Arjun at least admitted to Krishna, I'm confused. I need your help. You please tell me what's right. He wasn't fully surrendered, but he was humble enough to ask for help. Duryodhan, even there on the battlefield looking around, oh, Pitama, look at all the warriors on our side. We have so-and-so and so-and-so. We cannot be beaten. He's so foolish. He doesn't consider anything other than his own strength. He's completely intoxicated with his own power. So even God comes to a soul like that, God can't help him. Sometimes we want God to fix things for us, right? God can't fix anything. We each have our own individual will. When God himself comes to a soul and can't convince him of something, then what can God do? God has provided the scriptures, like the Vedas and Gita. That's there to guide us. He keeps sending saints on the earth planet to guide us. All that guidance is there. We have to be humble and accept it. So in order to be qualified to hear the Gita, we have to be more like Arjun. Obviously, Krishna didn't tell the Gita to Duryodhan. What would the use have been? He told the Gita to Arjun because Arjun was at least more than half surrendered to him. And he was humble. He accepted Krishna's guidance. So we came to this situation, and Arjun is on the right side, and there's no way to avoid this battle without allowing the adharma to continue to spread. He had to fight. And it's his duty as a Kshatriya to fight. Just like it's the duty of a police officer to uphold the law, even if it requires the use of force. But seeing that many of his relatives had chosen to support Duryodhan, and for one reason or another, they each had their own personal reasons, even some of his teachers, like his great-great-grand-uncle, Bhishma Pitama, he was on Duryodhan's side, who was beloved to Arjun. His family guru, Kulguru, Kripacharya, he also was supporting Duryodhan. The one who taught him the art of warfare, Dronacharya, he was also supporting Duryodhan. So he saw, I'm going to have to fight against and kill all of these people, and there were many other relatives also on that side supporting Duryodhan. He became so emotional, he became like limp. Gandivam sransate hastat. He couldn't even hold on to his gandiv. His bow is called gandiv. It just fell out of his hand. He slumped in the back of the chariot and he said, Nayotsya. Oh Govinda, Krishna, I will not fight. He gave his reasons also. He said that, if we fight this war, then so many of these warriors will die, then their family life will be disturbed. What will happen to the ones left behind? And I don't want the kingdom anyway. I'm not fighting this just to become king. Nakankshe vijayam Krishna nacharajyam sukhani cha. I don't want to be known as a great warrior. I'm not fighting just so I can have the pride of victory or so I can rule the earth, which we will if we win. I don't have those desires. So since I don't have any desire to rule, I don't have any desire to be known as a great warrior or to have the pride of victory, and I don't want to see all of these people die, then why should I fight? I don't want to fight. I'm not going to fight. But I'm so confused. You please tell me what to do. I don't really know what's right. Sammurdha said, my dharma sammurdha cheta. My mind is totally confused as to what dharma is in this situation. What is right for me to do and what is wrong for me to do. This is a classic situation in which we find ourselves, if not every day, many, many times in our life. What situation? Where we have a clear-cut duty, but it becomes clouded by our emotional attachment in a situation. There was no question as to what Arjun's duty was. Again, give it a modern example. Take a police officer who's sworn to uphold the law. Let's say he sees one of his close relatives breaking the law. Basically, this is the situation Arjun is in. All his relatives are on the wrong side of the law. That's the bottom line. It doesn't matter if it's Bhishma Pitamaha. It doesn't matter if it's Kripacharya, Dronacharya. It doesn't matter who it is. They're on the wrong side. They're on the side of adharma. When Krishna is on this side, obviously that's the side of dharma. And the ones who are going to fight against him, that's the side of adharma. So he has a clear-cut duty to uphold the law. Does it matter that it's his relatives who are on the wrong side of the law? In this modern example, no, of course. Every one of you would say that the police officer has to uphold the law, whether it's his relative breaking the law or not. Oh, he sees his cousin doing something wrong and he just turns the other way, but he sees someone that he's not attached to doing something wrong and he runs and arrests him. That's not fair. That police officer will get arrested for being biased like that. He'll lose his job and he'll go to jail. The police officer is expected to do what's right no matter who's involved. Even if his own child is involved, he's expected to uphold the law. And if not, then he'll be relieved of his duties or worse. Arjun was in the same situation. His duty was clear-cut. There was no question. There was no other option. The war had to be fought. It was the only way to stop Duryodhana. And the only thing that confused Arjun was his attachment to those against whom he was going to have to fight. This is the central dilemma of the Gita, and this is something we face many, many times in our life, where if our mind wasn't clouded by emotions or emotional attachment, it would be very clear to us what to do, what's right and what's wrong. We would see very clearly, but because of our attachment, we don't see clearly. Whether it's attachment to money, sometimes we know what's right and we know what's wrong, but sometimes we just want to make the money so much that we're willing to do something wrong to make some money. Why? Because somehow we justify it in our mind. Oh, it's okay this time. Or everybody else is doing it. Or whatever the excuse is, we find a way to justify it because of our attachment to wealth. So it clouds our judgment and we think, oh, I don't know, is it right, is it wrong? If we remove the greed, then it becomes very clear what's right and what's wrong. Sometimes it happens with our children, where we're not sure how to do the right thing for them. Why? Because we're too attached. Either there's too much pride, or sometimes anger comes because of attachment, and you want to discipline your children, but instead there's anger there. So how do you see clearly in order to discipline them properly? Why does anger come? Because of attachment. This is a central theme of the Gita, dealing with this balance or this dilemma that we face, where we have something we're supposed to do, but our attachment is telling us to do something else. Arjun was supposed to fight the war. It was his duty. To not fight the war would have been a bad action, just like a police officer allowing a criminal to perpetrate a crime just because, oh, he's my relative, so I didn't want to use any force on him. That would be considered a bad action by that police officer. Similarly, not fighting the war for Arjun would have been a bad action, but he couldn't see that because of his attachment to those involved. So once, you see, the whole first chapter, Arjun just gets everything off his chest. He tells Krishna just like you would tell a friend. This is what I think, and this is how I feel, and this is why I want to do this, and this is why I don't want to do that. He got everything off his chest. Like he gave a big lecture to Shree Krishna, and Krishna just sat there, smiling mildly and nodding. And when Arjun was done, then Krishna started talking. He let him get everything off his chest first. And then after, even though he had said, na yotsya, I won't fight, but he also said, but Krishna, I'm really confused. I don't know what to do. You please help me resolve all this. You give me some knowledge about what is the best thing for me to do in this situation. So only then Krishna started talking in the beginning of the second chapter. So that, in very brief, is an introduction to the Gita and the gist of the first chapter. And from tomorrow, we'll see how does Shree Krishna teach Arjun. In the second chapter, he starts by referring to three things that exist. And he also talks about the true nature of what a person is. And that a person, in their essential existence, can never cease to exist. We can never die. He teaches that to Arjun, along with many other things, which I'll be sharing with you tomorrow.